Oh, man, how come you never tried to find me? I ain't never got a postcard or a phone call, nothing. Where you been, man?
Wow.
Man,
Wow.
that's good acting. He meant that. Where you been, man?
He definitely meant that, man. That I felt that,
I
that
felt
one
that.
there hit me, because that was my lifelong quest. So wow. And I remember that episode, man, 1975.
1975. I remember when that came out. And here's a fun fact. When this show was being produced, Esther Rowe was selected as his wife, and she agreed to do this only if she had a husband and her children had a father. Aside from that, she wouldn't have
Wow.
done it.
Fun fact, man. Fun fact. And she knew how important fathers were for,
Yes.
our community and us as, you know, African American people, for her to make that bold statement to a studio as a employee and to be
Yes.
able to get that done with her statue. Kudos for her, man. Kudos to her. I love that. I love that.
Yeah. That's an appropriate video that we came up with because James Evans hadn't seen his father in 35 years. And the common denominator is that you didn't know your father. It was 42 years before you were 42 years old before you even had an opportunity to make that connection. So Finding Fathers, episode 2, the phone call that changed everything.
Yeah, that's my lifelong quest, man. Ever since I was a little boy, man, I always wanted to know who my dad was. And it was just that journey and that quest I had in my heart, man, that I just went for and followed it, man. It just never ceased to amaze me, man, on a lot of times how people take fathers for granted. I never did. I wanted to know who he was. I had strong men in my life that we'll talk about during this episode that molded me to be the man I am to this day. But other than that, man, let's get this party started.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening wherever you are in the world. And welcome to the Men's Lounge LA. I'm your host, Frederick Douglass Southern, aka Sir Frederick.
And I'm your co-host and partner in these conversations, Coach Chris. Welcome to the Men's Lounge LA.
Here at the Men's Lounge, our mission is simple. We empower men. We empower good men to become greater men. We empower men to embrace their masculinity and their humanity. And yes, we celebrate the women at the same time because without our women, we wouldn't be properly balanced.
I always tip my cap to the women. I was raised by a single mom, and you guys get a chance to see her beautiful face today. And without the women, we're doing nothing. Once again, welcome to the Men's Lounge LA.
My brother, how are you? How was your week?
My week was good, man. My week was good, man. We're venturing out here as a platform and going to be involved with something later on this year, and I'm excited about it, man. We spent some time, and it's going to be exciting for you guys to hear this down the road about the things we're going to be venturing into, helping veterans and this potential jazz concert that we're involved in. So my week has been really exciting, man, and fantastic, and I'm happy to be a part of that. How about yourself?
I've been preparing for this day for us to record because this is something special with this Finding Father series, and this one hits close to home simply because today we're highlighting our co-host, Coach Chris, not as a host, but as our guest. And we're going to get into that right after this.
They're good men. When I distribute action items, they need to be addressed. Excuse me, sir. Quiet, you brain. Wrong mental problem.
And welcome back to the lounge. A lot of people want to find their biological parents, but they don't know where to start. In this episode, Coach Chris shares the real process of hiring a private investigator. And in that moment, the search became real. And we'll also drop some information and resources in the description below to help those on their journey. Imagine hearing your father's voice for the first time after 42 years. That moment changed everything for Coach Chris. He spent 42 years wondering who his father was. Then one day, that decision changed everything. He hired a private investigator. And on that phone call that followed is something that he'll never forget. Here's the question for our listening audience, though. Have you ever searched for a missing parent or a family member? What would you do? If you spent your entire life wondering who your father was, not just where he was, but who he was, would you let it go or would you go looking? We want to hear from you. Drop it in the comments section below. And I want to invite Coach Chris to the stage.
I'm here.
Coach Chris, welcome to the lounge. Welcome to the lounge.
It feels strange to hear that, man, as a host, but
as a guest.
Yeah, guest
you're in the guest chair.
I am, and I'm proud to be here, man, because like I said earlier in the first part of the intro, man, this has been my lifelong journey. So I don't know what questions are going to be given to me. None of this stuff is scripted on my part. I'm just ready to just listen to what you got to ask and then just put it out there so we can help some folks and people who might be on the same journey or same quest. So I appreciate you, bro.
It doesn't have to be scripted on your end because you lived it. So
yeah,
that phone call, your phone rang, on the other end was your father.
Yeah.
When you first heard his voice, what did it sound like?
Man, it sounded to me like a man that was a good man because he sounded very humble. He sounded excited, especially after I, asked him a couple of questions, and he sounded like a spiritual man. He sounded like a God-fearing man. And it was actually, very, very, interesting at that very moment because it put me into a situation to where I felt, it was surreal. It was very surreal, and all I can say, man, is it just woke me up to like, wow, Pops is right here, 3,000 miles away, but he's in my ear at this point.
Right.
So that's the only thing I think about at this moment because it was so long ago, but that's what he sounded like. He sounded like a very sincere, honest, God-fearing man.
Did you hear yourself in his voice?
I never even listened to how I sound. That's a really good question. But to say that at this moment, I could say no, because what I was listening to, and like I say, by being such a surreal moment and me not even knowing how I sound, because I might sound different to myself than how other people hear me. But it's kind of hard to put that into, words on if it sounds like my voice. I could say no for the moment, but you know what? It was, if anything, it was just good to hear him. That's what it was.
When you spoke to him, how did you address him? You address him as Dad, Pops, AJ. How did that go?
Well, see, I only knew him as AJ. Because that's the name that I knew him on. And those were the initials. And we'll kind of cover that in a minute here when it comes down to maybe any question you have about my search for him through the private investigator I hired. So when I got that phone call, I was actually in my store and one of my employees told me I had a call. And we'll kind of go into that a little bit too, and I don't want to get ahead of how this story kind of, came together. I said, I'm looking for AJ. So it wasn't like I said, "Hey, are you my dad?" or "I'm looking for my dad." I just said, "I'm looking for AJ," to
Gotcha.
answer your question.
Gotcha. And what was the first after that? What came out your mouth after that? Just were you confident? Were you in shock? Were you surprised, or what was going through you at that time?
Well, I was definitely surprised, because initially, on how everything unfolded, like I said, I was at work, and like I said, one of my employees had told me I had a call on this line. I was in the back of my store, picked up the phone, and that voice said, "Hey, did you just call and looking for AJ?" And I was like, "Yes." He said, "Well, I'm AJ." So, and I put him on hold because I said, "Hey, hold on for a second. I'm gonna go in my office and they need to talk to you." And when I put him on hold, I told the guys, "Hey, man, hold down the store. I think this might be my dad." Went in, closed my blinds, got on the phone. The first thing I said to him is like, "I'm not trying to ruin anything you might have going on in your life. I'm not trying to shake up nothing. I just wanted to know who my dad is, and that's it." And at that point, he just said, "No, nothing like that's happening. Uh, I'm been trying to find you your entire life, and I didn't know how to find you." And we went through that, and that made me feel a little bit more comfortable him saying that, to ask other questions. And the question I asked him is, "Do you know Adora Wilson?" which was my mother's name.
Right.
And he was like, "Yes." And before I said anything else, he said to me, "Oh yeah, she grew up on Biloxi Street." And at that point, I knew I had the right guy.
What city was this? It was
In Jackson, Mississippi.
Jackson, Mississippi.
She grew up on Biloxi Street, raised on Biloxi Street in Jackson, Mississippi. And he knew that. And when he said that, I knew I was at ease with the right guy.
Yeah. Well, he sounded like warm and welcoming, and he didn't deny you or anything like that.
He did not. He did not, because he actually said that to me. He told me, he said, oh my God, God is so good. God is so good. I've been trying to find you. I didn't know how. California is where I know she moved. This is a big state. I didn't know how to find you. And I never denied you, son. I need you to know that I never denied you. And then
did he call you son?
He did.
Wow.
He called me son right at that moment.
Wow.
And like I say, man, I'm in my office, me by myself with my blinds closed, and I'm just talking to him, and he's saying these things to me, man. And like I say, it was very surreal. It was almost overwhelming to hear this, because I've never talked to my dad. I've talked to my uncles and stuff like that, and we'll kind of touch on that probably a little later on for maybe some of your questions, due to the fact that we know that the men in my life was most of my uncles. And
right,
like I say, but when he said that, it put me at ease, especially for me not wanting to ruin anything in somebody's family, because when you're talking about somebody calling you, as a father, and you didn't know that there might have been that son or daughter out there, and all of a sudden, you get this big blow in your life, it can ruin a household. And my thing was, I'm not trying to ruin nobody's household. I just want to know who this man is and was.
After 42 years of not having a father in your life, you finally found him. What did that little boy need from him in that moment?
That's a good question as far as need, because I never thought I needed anything, because my mom was always providing everything that we needed as brothers, because I have two other brothers and I'm the middle child, from that parent that raised me by herself. So need wasn't anything from him. It was more of a what I had in my heart to know who that man was. So if you want to consider that a need, I could say yes, I needed to know who he was.
Right.
From that gut feeling I had for all those years. Who was he? What kind of man he was? All I knew is that he was one hell of a singer. Yes. He was a gospel singer. From what I remember, the group that he was in was called the Sons of Abraham, That's what I knew. And I was able to get that information to my private investigator, the group name, the city he was in, and his initials. That was the only thing I was able to provide for her. So initially she was saying it may be difficult because the initials of AJ may not, help during the search. And thank God it did. But when it comes down to a true need, it was more of a self-identity thing for me.
Gotcha.
Who was this man? You know, how does he correlate to who I am now compared to how, the guys that, like I say, my uncles in my life who raised me, that need thing, I've never been a needy kind of person, but that's a really good question. I just think I need it for me to kind of get that chapter of my life understood.
That's a need. That's a legitimate need.
Yeah.
When you heard his voice, what did it awaken in you?
It wasn't more of an awakening, it was more of a closure. It closed that chapter of now that journey, that quest is over of me trying to search and find him.
Mm.
That's what that was, because it all, I used to ask my mother all the time, hey, what's up with my dad? As a matter of fact, the uncle who was really influential in my life knew him because he was a musician as well,
Right.
And I don't know if they ever played together. I wish they both were around so they can kind of let me know how their relationship was from either in passing because of that industry has been musicians and singers. But one way or the other, it was, I'm telling you, man, this whole thing is so wild to me because, as a father, and the show that just finished here, and I hope you guys go back and see it, that my sons did on me being a father, it just put like a closure to that particular chapter.
And you just took my next question out my mouth. Did finding your father bring closure, or did it open up more?
It brought closure to that quest, and it opened up more to know more about him. And it was wow because he had asked me about my mom, and his first words was, "Hey, how's your mom doing?" I said, "She's doing fine." And then the second thing he asked me, "Is she married?" I was like, "No, she's not married." So my father has been a player his whole life. So he still was trying to get with moms. So I was like, "No, she's not married. She never did marry." And then he asked me for her phone number. I gave him the phone number. And I had to get back to work, and I told him I'll reach out to him. We exchanged numbers as well, and I reach out to him when I get home because because my excitement level and everything at that point was just through the roof, and I wanted to get myself back to work mode. So I gave the number to him of my mom, and then I think about half an hour, maybe an hour later, I get another call. "Hey, Chris, you got a call? It's your mom." She's on the phone. She's like excited because I didn't call her and tell her that, hey, he may call.
Right. Right.
Whatever he decided he wanted to do, he was going to do. Hey, you're not going to believe who I talked to. You're not going to believe who I talked to.
She was
Yeah,
excited.
I said, "Yeah, you talked to my dad." She's like, "Yeah, he called me." I said, "Yeah, I was able to find him." She said, "You did? You did?" I said, "Yeah." And he asked about your number. So I didn't know he was going to call you right away. So they got a chance to talk for a while before she called me up. But her excitement level was higher than mine, honestly. So I remember that vividly, man. That was a good moment that my mom and dad got a chance to connect and talk.
Connect.
Yeah.
And I think of it, I hear you calling him dad. And
Yeah.
How does that feel? How does that make you feel to say my dad after 42 years of not?
Good. That's part of that closure.
Yeah.
It feels good to say dad, and say it from the heart, not just saying it because he was, or he was a sperm donor, like most people like to do derogatory names on dads.
Right.
It felt good because, like I say, as we were talking, man, that first day I got that phone call that changed everything was, hey, I never denied you. You know, when I told him I'm not trying to ruin anything in his life, he was like, "Yeah, I'm not worried about that." He actually told me, "I'm going to tell everybody about you. You know, all of my
Wow.
kids about you." So
Wow.
he opened up, man. How he was gracious, saying, "Oh, God is good. God is good." You know, I actually didn't know him that well, but just going back and reflecting on the whole thing, he might have had tears in his eyes in the way he was talking.
You know, you mentioned something about him being married and he's going to go back and tell the whole family and all that. Expound on that.
Well, he had mentioned that, you know, the siblings that I have that we'll talk about here shortly, he was going to let them know. You know, he said, "I'm going to tell all my kids about you. I'm going to tell everybody about you that, you know, I was able to, you know, get back in touch with you, you know, through this conversation." So it was more that situation of not being afraid of me coming into his life.
Right. Yeah, that was a nice connection for all of you. Did you ever get a chance to see him?
See him?
Correct.
No, no. Unfortunately, you know, we had a long 2 year, 2.5 year phone relationship.
Right.
And every time we would talk, I would talk to him almost every day. You know, when I got home from work, we would talk. At the time I was married, my sons were very young. He would talk to their mother. He would talk to them. And then he and I would finish, you know, the conversation. And then, you know, we reach out. And he would tell me that he's working on his van. And the van he's working on, he wants to drive to California and see us.
Right.
You know, the wife and kids, my mom, and the whole 9 yards as far as, you know, being able to see each other face to face. And that never happened. That never happened, unfortunately.
Oh man, that's sad.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's sad. But the beauty of it is that you did something a lot of people didn't and haven't done, and that was to actually hire a private investigator to go search for him.
yeah,
And
yeah.
now your mother, here she is. She had 3 sons with 3 different men. When you asked about your dad, how did she respond? Was she open or kind of guarded or vague, or how did she respond?
She was always open. She was always open. And that was another reason why I had that quest and that drive to do it, because I never got any resistance, any kind of negative feedback about, you know, her willing to tell me anything. Nothing, man. She was always there to answer any questions I may have about him, to where it was just genuine, man. She, you know, it's amazing to me, because when I told my uncle that I found him, and I told him the story about how he asked, "Hey, is your mother married?" The first thing my uncle said to me is that, "Hey, true love never dies."
Ah,
So whatever the situation was for me to be conceived like I was, and we'll kind of go into that later, I guess, when it comes down to Billy, my brother, that you guys gonna see here shortly on a video that was made when we went to Mississippi. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care about that. I never judged my mother for her lifestyle and how she, you know, my 2 other brothers in a situation with different dads. I don't even care about that. That didn't matter to me.
right.
But when it came down to anything that was involved with me wanting to know about my dad, it was always open. It was never any kind of shutdown on that at all.
You know, you and your brothers grew up in the same household,
Yes.
but you all had different perspectives. What were the conversations like growing up?
You know, it's interesting, man, because, you know, it wasn't like I was talking about this every single day as a child. They always knew that I wanted to know who my dad was, because like you mentioned earlier about my mom, I would ask about him, you know, just her and I, you know. It might have been at the dinner table at one time or another, you know, talking about dads, but it was always deep inside me. I believe a little bit more than my other two brothers, and that's no shade on them because everybody have their own gut feeling about things and journeys and wills to do things. And I just know that as an adult, and I knew that back then as a young boy. It just never ceased to amaze me on how when you're driven about things, no matter who you are as a person, when you have a drive to do something, it doesn't matter what other people think.
Did they ever express a desire to search for their father like you did?
No,
Really?
no, no.
So 1 out of 3, you had this burning desire to make this connection.
No, just to give a little feedback or backstory on the dynamics of that. My brother and I were born in Mississippi. My older brother was born in
Right.
Mississippi. I was
Right.
born in Mississippi. My younger brother was born here in California. So he's a LA native boy. My brother and I were seated in Mississippi. So overall, my younger brother's dad was out here and he had an opportunity if he wanted to, and didn't have to worry about that long search like I did when it comes down to distance and naming and all this and that. So I know that he didn't know and met his dad, but that gut feeling about him wanting to get it like I did, I don't know. I never even asked him that question. And as far as my older brother, he never had that same drive because,
Right.
all we knew is our mother, man. I'm telling you, our mother made our life so comfortable and so, assured that we're in good hands because we had a strong family, man. We always had a good family bond. That's why I say my uncles, aunts, and everybody in the family, we were close. We were very close. And unfortunately, a lot of them have passed on, but that closeness is never wavered. But overall, it was in me, dude. It was in
Right.
me.
So do you think your brothers, do you think they made peace with not knowing?
They would have to answer that question. I have no idea. It's a good question, but they would have to answer that question. I know that my older brother now, when he and I talk, he may need to address that to make peace, because when we do talk, he does bring up, how his life might have been a lot different if his dad was in his life. So I know that now, but back then it was never conversations like that.
Got you. How did they respond when you told them you finally connected with your father? What was their response, their feedback, their feelings?
Excited for me, very excited for me, man. It was no ill will on anything, that because they know me. I was always perceived as an older brother from how I was as a young boy and a young man, a young teenager and stuff like that. So everybody know that I just had this different way of you know my life. It's pretty much who I am to this day. Business oriented, family oriented, and just straight to the point. And they were thrilled, man. They were thrilled to death to see and know that I was able to accomplish my lifelong quest.
Right, right.
Both of them. Both of them.
So when you connected with your father, you discovered that he had a full-blown family. I mean, 8 children. You have 8 siblings.
Yeah.
And about this time last year, you and I were in Jackson, Mississippi,
Yeah.
meeting your 8 siblings for the first time. Tell us a little about that moment when you met them and how it even came about.
Well, it came about by you and I being involved in this platform, this podcast about, male empowerment. And I told you the story about me wanting to find my dad. I told you the story on how I lost track of my brother Billy. And, you have this app on your phone or some kind of information to be able to find people. And we were able to find my brother Billy's wife, phone number. So, and it was the coolest thing ever, man, because when we did reach his wife, she gave him the information, then he called. And then to be able to get back in touch with him, because going back to where my dad said he was going to let everybody know, he told my sister Janice, and he told Billy, and he told my other siblings, but I was only able to get in contact by phone with Janice and Billy. And when I talked to Billy, we were talking a lot, just as much as I was talking to my dad back then, and we created this brother, bond. It was over the phone as well. So all those years that went by, losing track of him because the number I had, there was no reconnecting. So thanks to you, you were able to help me get back in touch with him to where last year we were able to go face to face, like I wish I could have done with my dad. But when we got a chance to see him face to face, man, it was another surreal moment. And you were there. Right? You were there to witness it. You know what it was like. It was surreal, man. But it was really, really cool, man. It was really, really cool. Yeah.
And we were able to go together. And I just want to share the listening audience. This is when they first met, the parking lot. Brother Billy and what's your other brother name here?
It's Anthony.
Anthony. Yeah. So that was a beautiful thing. And then after we left there, we
hold
went
on. Go back.
Yes.
So for the viewing audience, Anthony's the older brother. He's with the king. He has a bad back like I do. And Billy is the one I had the relationship with over the phone. He's the one that's with the gray beard. And he's those two drove up to our Airbnb that day for me to meet them for the very first time. So that's who you're looking at right there as far as who's who. So Anthony's my older brother, and Billy and I are actually the same age. He's older than me by a few months, and I don't want to get into details with that, but hey, Papa was a Rolling Stone. Papa was a Rolling Stone.
So let me ask you this. What kind of insights did your siblings give you about your father? Because now y'all share the same blood, the same father, and what were they able to impart with you that only they could?
Yeah, like I said, you were there too for a lot of this, but to hear from my voice and direct it to the listening and viewing audience, he wasn't a very pleasant man to be around at that time because he was, he drank a lot. He was abusive to their mom, and he was a very he was a guy that went through a lot, and Billy gave me a lot of information about the things he was doing, and it wasn't a very pleasant man to be around, from what I'm hearing and what I know now.
But later on, he cleaned up
big time. He cleaned up big time, and that was long before I got a chance to, get in touch with him. And I caught him at the very good time in his life on when he did clean up. But Billy did disclose to us about how he did clean up because it's some of the things he went through. I don't really want to go into, but it was after, a new marriage he got into. It was a woman he was with, and this particular woman that he was with really helped change his entire demeanor, life, and everything. He did spend some time incarcerated from something he did. So, like I say, he had a very destructive life, a very, life that a lot of people in our community know a lot of men go through. And for him to come out and for me to get in touch with him like I did and the time I did and not experience that destructive behavior was perfect for me at that time because I needed to see the man I saw at that time in my life because it was genuine. It was very genuine.
So when you connected with him, that was actually a good representation that he had cleaned up, and so you had an opportunity to have a good relationship, telephone relationship.
Yes,
with him.
That's my point. That's
right.
My point. Mm-hmm.
While we were down there, I want the listening audience to show a picture of some of the siblings that you were able to connect with, and
yeah. It's funny because everybody can see Billy again right there with the Puma shirt on. I'm next to him. And most of you guys should know now, I'm about 45 pounds, almost 50 pounds lighter than last year. So what you're looking at now is a bigger size me. And, you know, the gentleman that's next to me right there is actually Andrew Nicholson. That's my brother as well, younger brother. And it's pretty wild because if you guys looked at the last episode, my son name is Andrew. My dad name is Andrew. So there's a lot of Andrews jumping off. That's my niece next to me. And we actually have a picture of her mom that we'll show here shortly because I see it in the queue. And then, like I say, my brother Anthony right there as well.
And here's your sister.
That's my sister.
Yeah, you know, this is the first.
They call her Tweety. They call her Tweety. Everybody got nicknames down here.
This is the first time in your life that you use the words sister.
Yeah, I did. That moment right there, man, that entire time being down in Mississippi last year, in 2025, it was, like I say, those surreal moments, man. My emotions were kind of tied in. But when I saw her and I started talking to her and I said, sister,
yes.
You know, I actually teared up. I'll never forget that moment because it came and hit me out of nowhere. It's like a ton of bricks that hit me. And even when I said dad to my dad, it didn't make me tear up. For some reason, when I said this is my sister, and it just hit me like, wow. You were there. You saw it.
I was there. I'm the one who took the picture.
Yeah. It just made me tear up, man. I'll never forget that moment because I always had brothers, you know.
Right.
And then initially, when I did talk to Janice, my sister down there, I didn't get a chance to meet her because when we were down there, she was actually in Las Vegas at that time. So I didn't get a chance to see her face to face. But my next visit, I want to make sure everybody's down there so I won't miss out on seeing her, since I did talk to her when I first got in touch with my dad back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So overall, I got a chance to meet her and see her. And she just hugged me and said, it's okay. But yeah, I showed some emotion at that point. I wasn't trying to hold anything in. I just was going through the whole process. But when I said sister, dude, that broke me down. That broke me down.
Yeah, I saw that. You know, when we were down there, your brother Billy took you to the family cemetery. You have a cemetery, and I like to pull that up and just do kind of walk down memory lane. And
my brother Billy, and we're gonna go through our family history of people who passed. Go ahead, Billy.
Okay, this is my mother, Regina Nicholson, right here. Okay. This is our granddaddy. This is our daddy, father, Mr. Ernest Nicholson. This is our daddy, A.J. Nicholson, Mr. Andrew Jackson Nicholson. That was his name. Okay. Over here, this is our grandma, Miss Lula Mae Nicholson. This is my dad and mama, right here, Lula Mae Nicholson. So this is our grandparent, mama right here.
My grandmother.
Yeah, our grandmama right here. And okay. This one right here, Miss Candy J. Walker. This our great grandma, Candy Walker. Our great grandma.
She lived to be 100
years
old.
And she was still in her right mind when she died. Could make some tea cakes out of this word.
Wow.
Yes.
And I want some tea cakes now.
Okay. And over here, this is Frank Nicholson. This is our great uncle. This is our grandfather, brother. He was in the war and all that. This is Frank Nicholson.
Yeah, World War II.
Yeah.
Veteran.
Mm-hmm. And this one right here, this is our daddy first cousin, so it's our second cousin. This Lucille Nicholson.
Beautiful woman.
Oh yeah, she was a gorgeous woman. Mm-hmm. And this right here, our second cousin, Ronnie Frank Nicholson. This Frank Nicholson's son. This Lucille brother. Right here, Frank. Okay. And over here, I go with Aunt Zephyr. This Aunt Zephyr right here, Kenny Walker's sister. Her name was Zephyr May Walker. And right here is her husband, Uncle Zeddy. This Aunt Zephyr husband, Uncle Zeddy. So we got a lot of more, family back here, but some of the gravestones are washed away. But yeah, this basically Evans. We came to the Evans and Nicholson's back here, and the Colemans. There's some Colemans. We all mixed in together.
It's all family.
All family. All family.
My family.
Yeah, your family.
Our family.
Our family.
That's right, brother.
Yes, sir.
That's our family.
As sister said, we are family. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what's happening on your grandfather's side. And it's surreal, guys, being here to see all this. I was hoping I'd go through this process and see him face to face like I'm seeing my brother now, but that wasn't the case. But I am overjoyed to be a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to do this my entire life, and I'm glad I did it before my life ended, because if it did, I would have never known. But at this point, I am overjoyed to be in a situation to where this is my family on my dad's side that I wish I was able to converse with at least all of them, if not the ones that he wanted me to age-wise. But these are our family.
Yep.
I'm gonna sign off right now, and I can't wait to get home and share this with you guys. Love you all. Later.
Man, that's monumental. How did you feel when you were able to walk through the family cemetery and look at the family tree and all that? Did you feel a connection, or?
I did, man. Because that was a part of my life that obviously I had no clue of, because my journey and quest was always just about my dad.
Right.
And to be with my brother Billy, and then for him to have so much knowledge of these people that I never got a chance to see, feel, touch, and be in their presence, and to see them, at their, gravesite, it actually closed another chapter of my life and opened up a book of who they were, because we were able to go visit a cousin, and she had some more information about some of those people that was viewed right there at that gravesite as well, to like I say, open up that book. But in my mind, like I said, it closed that chapter of the journey I was on for my entire life into my 40s, when it came down to me finally reaching that goal of, hey, I found my father, and it was cool. You were there too, and
Yes.
It was, sad, because I didn't get a chance to, like I say, actually embrace my dad. But it was good to be there, man. It was good to be there. It meant everything to me.
Well, it meant a lot to me as well, simply because I felt like family at that point. I felt like, I have a new family, and a part of that chapter had closed. You open up another one, and now you can continue with a new, man, how do I want to say this? With a new adventure. All the possibilities there with new brothers and sisters, and man, that's just the most amazing thing.
That's true because, everybody was so welcoming, man. They just welcomed us like, that was, that's the first time in my life I felt like a freaking superstar. I mean, really, dude, because the pictures you saw of my brothers, and there was a few more pictures that was taken, and can't share all of them because we want to make sure this shows, not going to be overwhelming when it comes down to all that stuff, and kind of get off to a collage of just pictures. But I mean, just the fact that you had mentioned that my girl family is from Mississippi. The dynamics down there is different. When I first went to Mississippi with my girl, and I felt at home. And this is before I got a chance to reconnect with Billy like you and I just did last year. And I've been to Mississippi many a times with my lady and spent time with her family down there. But it gave me some more sense of peace. I know Mississippi got some crazy history when it comes down to us as people. But for some reason, just being down there, with my brothers and my sister,
Right.
and my nieces and nephews, and it was, man, it's almost like I don't have the words to express, man, that just my dad alone not being in my life, and then him passing before I got a chance to embrace him. Fathers are important, guys. Listening audience, family, fathers are important. I don't know what relationships you guys have with your father. This is not a takeaway yet, but I just want to say, man, you guys out there that might be on the same journey or quest, just know how important dads are. They're very important. You're a father. You know how important you are to your children, big bro.
Of course.
It's just amazing.
As I'm sitting here, looking at you, listening to you, and, you're a strong, grounded man today. And you have sons, and you're that way for your sons, making an example for this. I'm curious about this when I talk to men, and a lot of men don't have a clear example of manhood growing up. How did you connect with your masculinity without a blueprint?
Like I say, my uncle, his name is Artis. He was a musician, and I told you guys earlier, he knew my dad.
Yes.
And he was my domino buddy. He was my confidant, a guy I just go to and talk to about anything. He and his daughter, Brenda, her and I are really close to this day. She's my cousin, but she's like a sister, even though I never call her sister. I always call her cousin. She, was raised by him. She was the only, child as far as the daughter. But for him, I would just talk to him. I would just talk to him about anything and everything and how he was as a man. He was a deacon in our church. Like I said, he was a musician. He used to play guitar, and he was a blues singer. I just gravitated to the older dudes, man. When I was younger, I always hung around the older dudes, and it was always my uncles, man. Saw how they would just talk. So my masculinity and who I am as a man came all from my uncles, man. But who I am as a true person came from my mother, because I saw how she provided for me and my brothers.
Right.
And for that, I would never deny her part in who I am as a man. I know it's always said a woman can never, raise a man to be a man. And, I have a lot of belief in that, but I also have a lot of disbelief in that because of my mother's impact in my life on who I am as a man.
Well, I can see that as a single mother, and yours was a true single mother. And
yes,
I can see a single mother. No, and I'm a part of that philosophy. I don't believe a single woman can raise a boy to be a man. I believe it takes a man in the picture to help a boy to become a man. Now, I also believe that a woman single mother as yours can, you know, raise you to be a responsible adult, you know, and
She
that's
had
fine.
huge influence.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
it's no question about it, man. Like I say, her way of providing for me and my brothers is the reason why I say what I say when it comes to that, because she taught me so many things about life, on just how to take care of a family. She was, and when we say true single mother, you know, hate me, love me for this comment, but if you're a mother out there and you have no help, you're a single mom. If you're a mom out there and you're getting help from the the man, and you don't live together, and he's still taking your kids, and you have your free time, you're a single parent. Just like that, just like that father. You're a single parent. You're not a single dad. You're a single parent, you know. But if you're a single dad because you have no help, because you're you know, a widow or something like that, or the dynamics is different because you're just taking care of that child. This is just my view of this. You love me or hate me, but a single mother was my mom. She had no help from no man. Like you said, 3 different fathers.
Right.
And none of them came in and helped, because obviously I was 40 in my 40s when I met my dad. My younger brother, like I told you, his dad was, you know, here in California. My older brother, dad was in Mississippi. She was here just with our local family, her brothers and her sisters, my uncles, my aunts. Just support from there as far as this. But my mother worked every single day in her life to make sure we were good. I never knew anything about being poor growing up. So my mother was a huge influence on who I am to this day when it comes down to providing, making sure the family's taken care of. But as far as my masculinity, from your question, came from my uncles.
Good. Let's circle back to that, because I remember a story that you told me about playing dominoes and this life lesson your uncle taught you. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, most definitely, because that one there definitely part of the influence on, you know, this. You know, most people who know dominoes, everybody got different rules in their own households. You know, when it comes down to, you know, 10, you're in, everything counts, 5 all the way up. Like I say, some people just count 10s, they don't even call 5s. You know, 5 don't even count. In his house, you know, when it came down to doubles, you know, big 6, big 5, big 4. Sometimes if you have more than 5, sometimes more than 4, you should dump your hand. Just throw it down. Man, I was playing him one time. I think I had 5 doubles in my hand, man. It was like a ridiculously hand that just looked bad to me. We dumped it out. So what are you doing? 5 doubles. Pick that up. 5 doubles. Pick that up. Play it. Picked it up. Played it. And obviously he saw what was in my hand because I dumped them.
Right.
And I actually won. And like I said to everybody else before, I beat his ass. I beat him. And then after I won that game, he said, you see, always play the hand that's dealt to you. Never dump your hand. I never forget that.
So what was the life lesson? What was the life
The
lesson?
life is that, hey, to play the hand that's dealt to you.
Right.
You know, whatever's coming your way, play it. Play it. Don't dump it, because you never know. You still might win.
Right.
And if you don't win, you'll learn something from that either way. Play that hand that's dealt to you.
That's a great lesson. You mentioned learning from other men, which is what we do. How did you know what to keep and what to let go of when it came to formulating your masculinity?
I knew what to keep.
Yeah. How did you know what to keep and or what to let go of?
That's a hard question to answer, because I never thought about what I did keep, what I have kept, and what I let go. The only thing I let go was just things that I knew that was going to be hurtful to my mom, and that was destructive behavior.
Right.
So I never did keep any of that, because since my mom was the one that I saw that was working so hard and doing everything she could to make sure we were okay, I didn't want to do anything to hurt her at all as far as being out there in the streets, because I had opportunities to go out there and, you know, gang bang and all this other stuff. But for me, I was a worker, man. I worked. I've been working ever since I was 15 years old, you know.
Right. You know,
So
that's a great question to
yeah.
ask to our listening audience, our young men who grew up fatherless. How do you know what to keep? How do you know what to let go of? Because some people lead us down the wrong road. Not us, but you know. So how do you know when you're being led down the wrong road and what to let go of? That's uh that's a good question. I like my listening audience to respond to, and put your comments in the comment section below.
Yeah, it's a legitimate question. There's no question about that, because I never even thought about anything of that sort, of keeping and letting go. But I know that I didn't want to, you know, keep anything, like I mentioned earlier, to hurt my mom. And I guess that goes hand in hand in letting it go, you know.
Right. So the message to the young men, what would you say to a young man, a fatherless young man trying to understand his masculinity? What would you say to a young man, a fatherless young man trying to understand his masculinity?
You know, influence comes in so many different ways, and by so many different people that you have in your circle or you view or see. Because my TV dad was, you know, James Evans Sr. that we saw. So usually, sometimes coaches. You know, I'm a coach, and I've seen
Yes,
coaches
yes.
in school. You know, uh, mentors. You know, someone at church, a deacon at church. You know, uh, a neighbor, someone you can trust. Um, a lot of times, you know, guys don't want to express themselves or know how to express themselves. And that's another reason why we have this platform, so we can have men come down to express themselves, to make sure this is a place to come and just open up. So I don't know, man. Man, I wish I had seen that question in advance so I could really think about that because that's a great question.
Well, actually, you answered that question some time ago when I asked. It's not coming to you right now, but in
Well,
our previous,
refresh my
yeah,
memory.
in our previous conversations, including yourself, how did you come to grips with masculinity? And what you told me was you got into sports. You got your children into sports, and sports is one of the best ways for a young man to uh, come to grips with their masculinity. That's what you told me some time ago.
Yeah, like I said, coach, being a coach, I played just about every sport that you can imagine, you know, and I've been an athlete my entire life, you know. My body's beat up now at the age of 62
Right,
because of that. You know,
right.
I was a rough rider, you know, and I definitely was very masculine when it came down to that stuff. So yeah, that's a good way of viewing it, you know. I always kept my sons involved in some sort of activity, you know. So yeah, that's definitely a good way of going into finding your masculinity, because you know my son Nathan, he's our editor on this show, and he had mentioned in that last episode that how hard I was hitting the ball to him when we were doing some drills at the park. I knew I had to get him to get over his fear of being hit, because pain is only temporary when it comes down to being hit by the ball. You know, there's other kind of pain that lasts for a long time, but we can cover that on another show. But this particular pain, and you know what I'm talking about, there's a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
mental pain, there's a lot of mental anguish that people go through, and those pains kind of last differently. So I don't want to misconstrue what I mean by pain is temporary. I'm talking about this particular me as a coach and making sure, and I wasn't trying to hit him with the ball purposely. I was trying to get a message over to him to understand that this pain that you feel is temporary. So get over your fear from that point of view of being hit by the ball.
Right.
Protect yourself with this equipment you have, and this equipment you have is a glove that's on your hand. So use this glove to block this ball from hitting you and I'm gonna teach you that by hitting this ball to you like it would be in the game. So let me clear that up, guys. I was an abusive dad. Like I told you about how my dad was early in his life. I was a coach trying to send a point and a message over, and it worked because it made him a better player. But yeah, that was definitely something that can help with masculinity when you get with a coach that really understand how to put things into perspective when it comes down to teaching, that when it comes to little boys.
$10,000 question, Coach Chris.
I better get paid when I'm done.
Growing up without a father, what made you believe you can get married, raise a family, be a good father without a blueprint?
That is a good question. And like I said, I want to get paid. By me not having my dad, I knew I always wanted to give them something I never had. That's what that was. My blueprint was my mother and my uncles. So not having that dad there like my sons had and like your children had is kind of messing up the question on that blueprint part. But I created my own blueprint, my way of the drive I had, the will I had in that quest of wanting to know who my dad was.
Got you.
And I never wanted my children to experience and have those kind of voids in their life. So I knew that nothing's going to stop me from being a dad, because since I didn't have it, I was not going to deny my children that I didn't have.
And for the man watching right now, the one who grew up without a father, what would you want him to know?
Never stop being a dad is what I would want them to know, no matter what the circumstances are. We as men, we go through a lot, period. We go through a lot when it comes down to being a man, as far as our race, as far as our relationships, and as far as our quietness to not speak about things, holding things in. But to be a parent is actually a good thing. It's a good thing, and especially a father, because a father can be a huge influence on a girl. I don't have girls, so I'm only speaking from who I've talked to as a father like yourself who have girls, how you influence them on how they live their life, the more you put into them, So knowing that you as a man that wasn't growing up with a father, don't deny that child something that you didn't have. Because if you don't have it, give it to them. Let them experience, like I just said, that you didn't experience. Don't deny them that. It'll be a disservice to you as a man not to give this child what they deserve to have, and that's a father. That's a father. Never stop being a father, no matter what the circumstances are. Never.
Well, that sounds like that's our takeaway, because that was going to come up next. What would you want our listening audience to take away? And you addressed that before I can even get to it. So
yeah, this whole thing to me is a takeaway, because this journey I've been on, this quest I've been on, I'm not the only one. I'm sure out there in this listening audience, and I know this for a fact because I've talked to a lot of men, and I've talked to a lot of fatherless, guys that was in my life. And I've also recently talked to my lady. She had her dad up until his passing when she was younger, but still when he passed while her being at a young age, she still felt a void in her life by her dad not being there up into her adult life where she is now. And if that's the case, I know there's a lot of people out there, male and female. I know we're talking about me as a male, but male and female have this void in their life about this man not being there for whatever the circumstances are. There's a lot of things that's out there in social media about how male bashing is and how this guy is no good and, you know, he's a deadbeat and all this and that. And I refuse to believe that in every situation. But I know there's a lot of deadbeats out there. There's no question. I'm not going to be, you know, stupid to say that all men are good, you know, but no, there's deadbeats out there. There's guys out there that's just trash, period. But there's a lot of good men out there too that's not getting their just due and they're being done wrong. And that's something I would love to see change, because these men out there that want to do the right thing and should be doing the right thing and are doing the right thing, come on, guys. Show them that love. Let them be dads. That's my real takeaway.
Got you. Well, we're winding down. To our listening audience, thank you for joining us today here at the Men's Lounge LA. If you found value...
Hey, the recording stopped, man. No, I'm sorry. My bad. We can fix that.
No, we can fix that.
No, we good. Go ahead. My bad.
As we're winding down, thank you for joining us today here at the Men's Lounge LA. If you found value in today's conversation, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And your voice helps these conversations reach more men who need them. In addition to that, if you're serious about growth and support, join us for a live men's group in Pasadena. We meet every other month, and we have real conversations around fatherhood, boundaries, peer pressure, and core values. Email us at themenslounge.com for details, and be sure to tune in for more conversations like this. So, Coach Chris, it's your barbecue. Take us home.
You know, as we end all our shows, we always say, as we empower men, everyone benefits, especially and including the woman who's looking for a man like that.
Here at the Men's Lounge LA, we're empowering men, strengthening families, and transforming lives. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time in the lounge.
Thanks for watching.